All right, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody. This is Kurt Russell with the Open Mat and Everything Penn State, and I'm here with Tim Owen. We're going to do a little Southern Scuffle preview here. How's it going, Tim?
Good, Kurt. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, too.
Well, thanks. Did you guys have a white Christmas up there in Pennsylvania?
Unfortunately, no. I was even a little more north of State College and didn't reach us up there. I had a few flurries, but nothing to call a white Christmas, unfortunately. I always like looking forward to, a little snow on the ground, but we have a couple good tournaments coming up that take place. I mean, we have obviously the Southern Scuffle, but also the Powerade in Pittsburgh, the big high school tournament in Pennsylvania starts today, and also the Midland out in Illinois. So there's enough to talk about here to keep us busy.
Yeah, that's true. So you got to go to practice yesterday?
Yeah, I was up to Lorenzo Wrestling Complex yesterday afternoon just for the start of one of their Southern Scuffle practices. And they're basically running almost a two-a-day type format this week since there's no class scheduled winter break. All the kids came back on Monday, I believe, and had a light practice Monday evening. Then they got into the thick of things on Tuesday morning practice, along with a Tuesday afternoon, same thing on Wednesday. And I believe there's another two-a-day session today before they start to lighten the load, and they're going to fly out on Saturday, I believe. Going to head down to Atlanta, catch a flight from Atlanta back up to Chattanooga, and then they're there for January 1st, January 2nd, Southern Scuffle. It looks to be a solid tournament this year.
No bus ride, huh? They're going to fly.
Yeah, they're taking a bus to Harrisburg, flying from Harrisburg down to Atlanta, and then hopping over to Chattanooga from there. So it sounds like they're a little relieved not to be on the bus, but stops in between to get to Chattanooga first. But
yeah, have you ever been?
On the bus.
You ever been to Chattanooga?
I haven't been there yet, but I've heard it's going to be a fun place to spend New Year's.
It's definitely a fun place. It's way up in the mountains, and to drive there is one of the more wild rides on any interstate you could take. There's plenty of places to pull over in case your brakes aren't working. It's that kind of steep hill. It's kind of like taking 322 over the hill from State College down to Lewistown, if you ever done that. It's even more wild than that. So
yeah, there's enough mountains between that here and there that may not make for the safest bus ride, but probably a good idea that they're flying.
Okay. All right, so what kind of news do we got coming out? I saw that you said that Martelletti is eligible now officially.
Yeah, that's probably the number one thing coming out of practice yesterday. That was first released when the Southern Scuffle brackets came out before Christmas. And after being ineligible for the fall semester, the summer semester, and the spring semester of last year, Frank Martelletti is back as an eligible wrestler for Penn State, and he will be going to 133 along with Derek Reber, who's been starting for the first semester for Penn State. But yeah, Martelletti's real excited to get back. Talked to him, he was all smiles yesterday, and also talked to Cal a little bit about having Martelletti back on the roster, which just gives them another option at 133, which is a weight class that they've been going back and forth with. Martelletti's all excited to get back in there, as Cal called him yesterday, a mat rat, I guess, ever since he was ruled academically ineligible last winter. The kid hasn't left the practice room, has put his nose into the grindstone, and just been working for this day to finally become eligible. And Cal also said, that drive has also helped him succeed in the classroom. Kind of gives him that little extra motivation to, put a couple more study hours in and do a little bit more reading along those lines. So he's finally back, and he's a little anxious because this is the tournament that he wasn't able to wrestle in last year. He wrestled all the way up until this point, and then got the unfortunate news of his classroom situation. So he's real excited to get back down there, and he had a pretty tough bracket at 133, but a top 6 place finish for Martelletti really isn't out of the question this weekend. And then this got some other news. Sam Sherlock was expecting to wrestle the Southern Scuffle. He was the starter at 141 to begin the season, and he is still suffering from a sprained ankle that he suffered at the Nittany Lion Open. So he's going to take a rest. He actually just returned to full practice on Wednesday, so just yesterday. So, he's getting back into the groove and could be back. He wants to dual meet again after the scuffle, beginning with, I think we have Michigan State on January 8th. So he could be back hypothetically for that match. But, that's all going to depend on how Brian Pearsall and even Seth Bites do down to the scuffle at 141 in lieu of Seth, or in lieu of Sam Sherlock. And then probably the last bit of information from yesterday's practice is Morgan McIntosh appears to be healthy from that sprained LCL that he suffered at the Nittany Lion Open. Cal said he's still not 100% healthy, but he looks to be moving better than he did at the Lock Haven match, where he did end up wrestling, even though he did wrestle with a large tape wrap from the middle of the thigh that went down to almost his ankle. But luckily for Morgan, yesterday he wasn't practicing with that tape wrap and looks to be moving pretty well. So he looks to be full go for this weekend, and this is going to be his hardest tournament, hardest day of competition, as most of these wrestlers up until the Big Ten tournament in March. So it looks to be, besides Sam Sherlock, seems everyone's healthy. Frank's back on the team. I think they're set to go down there and compete this thing.
That's very good news for. I think most Penn State fans were expecting that, but that's good news to finally know that's a done.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just see something here. I think didn't Martelletti wrestle in the scuffle last year?
He said he might have wrestled. I don't know. He said last night that this was he was a little bit of revenge for him, because this was about the time of the year that he was ruled ineligible last year. So he's chomping at the bit to get back into it.
No, he actually he did wrestle last year, and I think he finished like 6th or something, which is I think part of the reason why he got a 6th seed this year. He actually outdid Pataki, that was his first matches back, and with his knee injury and everything. So I know Frank still wrestled in the scuffle last year, but that was his last. That was his last draw. After that, he came back and he couldn't.
He wasn't able to wrestle once the spring semester began.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at some of these weights for Penn State. 125. That seems to be, to me, the deepest, probably just about the deepest weight at the whole tournament there. Especially when you see Nico has got a 6th seed. I mean, when was the last time he ever got a 6th seed? Has he ever gotten a 6th seed? That's what I kind of wonder.
Yeah, he might not be used to this starting position, but he's got a lot of challenge in front of him. With Sanders and Pirelli and Waters, it's going to be a big weight class of 125.
So it looks like he would actually face Pirelli in the quarters if he makes it there. And if he can make it through Pirelli, then chances are he would have to go up against Alan Waters, which is Missouri's tough sophomore right there.
Yeah, it looks like he would be able to make it out to the quarters with Pirelli. He might have a kid from Army before that he shouldn't have a problem with. Up until then, it looks like Pirelli's going to be a stiff competition. Pirelli's talented, and he's really improved from this year to last year. I don't know if anyone's got to watch any of the Cornell matches, but he's a goer. I think he's really going to match Megaludis' style. So Megaludis can get past Pirelli. It's going to be a great confidence boost going into the semifinals with this kid from Missouri. But if he gets that win, he goes in the semis. If not, he's going to drop down, and then then he has another battle with some of the tougher guys at the top of the bracket. He might not even be able to finish in the top 4, depending on how that happens. But it'll be a tough test for Megaludis, and a good indicator of where he sits going into the Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, I don't see him beating Pirelli, and but I do see he could still crack the top 4. He could still out-wrestle his seed there, which would bode well for Penn State in the team race there. And I don't see anybody touching Sanders, so I think that first seed's pretty much a lock for him. At 133, Penn State's going to have two guys. You got Frank Martelletti's got the 6th seed, and also got Derek Reber's going to be wrestling in there as well.
Yeah, both guys, it's going to be a big tournament for them because more than likely the person who finishes the highest is going to go on to be the starter for the rest of the season at 133. Derek Reber, he's a transfer from Bucknell at the beginning of the year, so, he's really going to want to have a strong showing and if he wants to maintain that starting position at 133. Where on the other hand, you have Martellotti who's coming back after 3 semesters of ineligibility, and he's going to be chomping at the bit to get out there. So, if Martellotti can place to his or above his seed of 6, that'd be great for Penn State. That also would probably seal him a spot for 133. But there's some competition at 133 starting off with Thorne from Minnesota, and then you have who's the 2nd seed here. You also have McCormick from Missouri. So there's some other guys that will challenge Martellotti. If he can even pick up a win over one of the guys seated ahead of him, that'll go a long way.
Well, I actually think after Thorne, the next 7 seeds are almost kind of a crapshoot because, I know Frank hasn't wrestled in a year, but I always got kind of reports from guys who were in the room telling me that when he used to wrestle Andrew Long, he kept up with Andrew. So I think Frank is, just based on that, has improved over the past year, and I think he actually has a chance to get to the finals. I really don't see anybody being able to... nobody's really dominant out of any of those wrestlers besides Thorne, as far as I can see.
Yeah, he definitely shouldn't have a problem making it to the semifinals. Like I said, in that semifinal match, that's going to be a big indicator. But if he can get to the finals against Thorne, it says a lot for Martellotti's work ethic while he's been on this ineligibility. Like Sanderson said, he was in the practice room basically 24/7, working out just as much as any other starter would, even though he wasn't actually competing. So, that'd say a lot about Martellotti if he was actually able to make it to the finals of this tournament.
Well, I'm going to go out on the limb and pick him to make it to finals. I don't think he's going to beat Thorne, but I'm going to pick him for 2nd right now. 141 without Sherlock there. Pearsall has certainly stepped up his game here. He's got the 6th seed, and then Seth Bates is there as well. He's looked like he dropped from 149. I saw you wrote a little bit up of that. What's up with Seth dropping weight there?
Well, he was certified at 141 to begin the season, and he wasn't like at the start of the season. He wasn't quite sure if he wanted to go 149 or stay at 141. Because if you remember last year, he kind of floated between 133 and 141. So after testing at 149 a little bit, he realized 141 might be his better weight for this year. But also, when he was up the weight class, he did pretty well. Has a winning record after the Nittany Lion Open. And he had picked up a couple good wins. And with Cal Sanderson said yesterday, he flipped the switch from last year and has just really improved. So that's a lot for Bice that he's going to be able to make the trip go down there. And also he could be in the mix as a starter for 141 if he has a strong showing here. Pearsall still is probably in the driver's seat to be the starter at 141 after this tournament, and then depending on how Sherlock's injury works out, there's a lot of different factors. But Bice has a good opportunity here to stir the pot up and turn some heads with a good performance. And he dropped down to 141. He said the weight cut hasn't really affected him too much because that is what he's been certified at. And he was actually home this winter break working out with his little brother Zach, who is a senior in high school this year, is actually committed to wrestle for Penn State next year after he graduates.
Right. And
that actually helped him get back down to 141. And he said, he was feeling good wrestling him all week and feels prepared to, go down in Southern Scuffle and hopefully, make some people, rethink the starter could be at 141. But right now they have some big matches in front of them first.
Yeah, the top 3 weights at 141 with Mike Mangrum from Oregon State, he just won the Cliff Keen tournament in the first week of December. Evan Henderson from North Carolina has been looking really sharp. Nick Dardanes, even after he lost to Nevinger from Cornell, has bounced back and had a lot of dominant performances. So I think that's going to be real tussle between the top 3 or 4 guys there. I don't see Pearsall really out-wrestling his seed at this point.
No, Pearsall could finish in the top 6. That'd be great for him and Penn State. I'm going to go with Dardanes for this, the Minnesota wrestler. I'm going to go with him as the winner at 141. But if Pearsall can finish in the top 6, that'd be a victory for him, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. 149, it looks like it's the Frank Molinaro show, and I don't know, the only person who looks like he could really challenge is probably Jason Ness, though Bradley's had a pretty good year so far, but other than that, he's just been so dominant, and he seems to have kicked it up a little bit this year. He's been even a bit more aggressive and, gotten some bonus points here and there, so I really don't see anybody touching Frank at all here.
No, not in this tournament. There's no one in here that'll test him. His biggest test will come in the finals with Dylan Ness, as he said, from Minnesota. I think he's going to have this one marked on his, marked in his head, because when they had the dual meet against Minnesota, Molinaro gave up 2 late takedowns against Dylan Ness to avoid his bonus points. So he was a little sour after the match about that. So he's probably going to want to go out there and kind of set the record straight that he can put up extra points on a guy like Dylan Ness, even though Dylan's young, Dylan's got a pedigree and is going to be one of the top wrestlers in the country here in a year or 2. So I think Molinaro shouldn't have a problem beating him. I think what he's going to want to do is maybe score a bonus point or 2, with a tech fall or just a major decision.
Yeah, 157. Then it's the Kyle Dake show. He moved up a weight this year, the 2-time NCAA champ from Cornell. Though Penn State has got 2 guys in there. They've got Dylan Alton as the 2nd seed and Jimmy Vollrath, the 6th seed. And the rest of the field looks pretty tough, behind Dake there to try and fight for who's going to finish second to him, probably.
Yeah, there's some guys in there that can make a run at this. I think, though, the way Dylan Alton's been wrestling is that he'll be in the finals with Dake. Unfortunately for these guys, both Vollrath and Alton are on the same side of the bracket, so they're going to have to wrestle each other before either of them were to get to Dake, hypothetically. But I don't think either of them has it in them yet to beat a guy like Kyle. But just to see what kind, where they are, kind of as a measuring stick when they wrestle a guy like Kyle. So, hopefully for their sake, one of them qualifies onto the finals. From here, it looks like Dylan has a better opportunity. But Kyle Dake right now is at a different level. At least he was at 149. So if he goes up to 157 this year, he's got to prove that the weight class isn't going to hinder him at all. And so far, he hasn't. He hasn't had any problem, and it'd be a good test for Dylan if he gets up there. And he can keep a match close with Dake, would be a win for Dylan.
Well, if the seeds go chalk, it looks like Vollrath would face R.J. Pena from Oregon State. Though I think Pena's pretty good. He moved up from 149 from last year, but I think Jim could actually beat him. And I'm actually going to predict a Alton Vollrath semifinal there.
Yeah, actually, I have that too, Kurt. Pena is good. I think Vollrath a little bit better, though. And Vollrath's the kind of guy who really seizes his opportunities. You have to get a whole lot of them with a guy like Dylan wrestling in front of him this year. And last year he didn't get the start right away. But when he's out there, he really does take advantage of his opportunities. I think I'd be surprised if there's not a Penn State semifinal there in the bottom half of the bracket.
Yeah, and some Penn State fans might know Vollrath actually lost to James Fleming in the semis of the Nittany Lion Open, and he had a really good showing. I watched the tape on that. He had his chances to win that, but I think he even lost like 1 point or something. But he's definitely.
Yeah, that was a match that could have gone either way.
Yeah, he's definitely shown that if he was at another school, he could be top 15, top 10 wrestler at his weight class.
Yeah, no doubt. He'd be in the top 15 if he was starting anywhere else.
165. Again, it looks like the David Taylor show, and everybody else is going to be scrambling for second there.
Yeah, and it looks like there's three guys that could be scrambling there to face off with even in the finals. You have Cody Young, you have the younger Peppelman, and then Paul Gillespie from Hofstra. So all three of those guys kind of, I feel like, have a even shot at getting into the finals, and all three on the bottom of the bracket. From looking at the competition, more than likely David will tech fall, or at least major decision his way to the finals. And if he faces either of those three in the finals, he should, easily handle them as well. Just David's on a tear this year, and 165 isn't the strongest of weight classes either. So David should be set to go at 165 for not only this tournament but the rest of the year.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an indicator when the kid who was the third seed got tech-falled. David tech-falled the guy's the third seed. That's something you might expect in the first two rounds, but that's something that could actually happen in the finals. So
Exactly. He's at a different level than almost everyone at 165, if not everyone, for this year.
174, again, looks like, we've got Ed Ruth. Matt Brown, actually, I was kind of eyeballing the seeds. I picked him as a seventh seed, though. The way the brackets actually fell, it didn't actually look like he was the seventh seed, but when I compared him to everybody else who was in that bracket, I just couldn't even see how anybody could pick, anybody else besides Matt, considering also his strong showing at the Nittany Lion Open. So I threw that in there, even though, like I said, it was kind of eyeballed. But this looks like, again, Ed's tournament to lose.
Ed shouldn't have a problem getting into the finals. I don't know if anyone remembers last year, but this was Ed's breakout tournament last year, and he had two big wins over the national champion or the national runner-up from Cornell, and then also Heinrich from Virginia last year were the big wins that put Ed Ruth on the collegiate map. And Cal thinks that he's going to be able to carry that same momentum down to Tennessee this year, and I really don't see anyone who's really going to challenge Ed. Maybe, if he gets all the way to the finals, Henderson. I think Henderson's the second seed. That might be the stiffest challenge for Ed along the way. But, that's the saying that Henderson, who's from Missouri, they're saying that he can get past Matt Brown, which isn't necessarily a given how well Matt wrestled at some of these competitions this year. And the kid's just a strong kid, too. So there's an outside possibility this will be a Penn State final, but I would say more likely it's going to be a Ruth-Henderson final, with Ruth winning easily.
Now, 184, the question of the year so far is which Quentin Wright is going to show up. He's got the third seed, but he's totally capable of winning the whole thing.
Yeah, he got the third seed, and I asked him if he was a little bitten by that since he's the national champ, but he's used to it. If anyone remembers, he entered the Big Ten tournament last year as a number 8 seed, and the NCAA tournament as number 9, and still walks through, or I don't want to say walk through those tournaments, but won the title of both those tournaments. So seeds don't really play a factor in Quentin's mentality. I think it's just kind of his own personal motivation. And I've always said Quentin's a better tournament wrestler, and this weekend will, prove if that's a right assessment. Because you said 125 is one of the deeper weight classes here. I think 184 is right up there as well. With Sonny Yan and Hollis from Indiana, he's up at 97. You have Bozak at 184, he's the first seed. And then Steinhaus from Minnesota, who obviously beat Quentin earlier in the year. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Quentin's going to win this tournament because, like I just said, I feel like Quentin's a tournament wrestler rather than a dual meet wrestler. I feel like that's kind of just his fire, that's his motivation, and especially when he's kind of an underdog, which he kind of is this weekend as a number 3 seed. But in order to, to get to the finals, you have to avenge his loss of Steinhaus in the semifinals, and then if he meets up with Bozak in the finals, that's a matchup you're going to want to keep an eye out on because these kids grew up together wrestling here in the State College area. Bozak's a State College grad, Bald Eagle grad for Quinn Wright. So they're used to each other. They haven't wrestled each other collegiately yet, but there would be quite a storyline to watch if that does happen. Another dark horse that you might want to keep an eye out at 184 is John Fossey from Virginia. He's put some good showings on, especially in the past. That's always someone Quentin Wright always talks about that he doesn't really want to cross paths with because just a younger guy who's still up and coming and could really have a legitimate college career. So he's a dark horse deep in at 184.
He's a Pennsylvania kid too.
Yeah, Line Mountain.
Quentin definitely has the tougher path because in order to win, he's probably going to have to beat Steinhaus and Bozak in the same day. So that'll be a good challenge for him. I agree with you. I think he's going to be up for it.
I think so too. I'm going to pick Quentin this weekend.
197, this is the one weight class that probably could outdo 125 because you got Morgan McIntosh as the 4th seed. That, again, when was the last time he ever got a 4th seed? And then you got Matt Pallas and Sonny On, and then everybody's favorite, he was injured a few weeks ago, and he's back, Cam Simaz from Cornell.
Yeah, Simaz is the guy that you really have to watch here because he absolutely destroyed Sonny On, if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the season. I want to say he had like a 10-point lead before he actually ended up pinning him in the 3rd period.
Yep.
So Simaz right now is at a national scope and in the driver's seat of this weight class, and if he wins this tournament, that'll only assure that. For Morgan, he's going to have a tough road if he really wants to make an impact here this tournament. Starting at the quarterfinals, if he gets out to the quarterfinals, he's going to have Meeks from Oregon State, who shown that he's no slouch, and that match right there I have circled because Morgan's still learning, still getting adjusted to this college sport, which is a lot different than what people are used to in high school. But that's one match. If he can get past Meeks at the quarterfinals, then right after that he's going to have Simaz in the semis, and then who knows if he gets to the finals. I mean, I'm not sure if that's going to be even in the books with this type of weight class. So I mean, a top 4 finish for Morgan is probably very realistic. I would say he's going to get 3rd place. I'd be really surprised if he's in the finals come Monday afternoon, but you never know. Morgan has talent. It's just kind of getting everything organized to the college level right now.
Yeah, I think we're still seeing him making a couple little mental lapses, because maybe in high school he wasn't always challenged for a full 7 minutes, so because he actually had a chance to beat Boley, in the Nittany Lion Open finals, but he let that get away from him. The same thing with Jan.
Exactly, and that's kind of where I'm basing that up. The Boley match, kind of where I'm basing off of this match with Meeks. Same. I don't want to say same caliber wrestlers, but both wrestlers who've had some success in the past and are a little bit more acclimated to the college level than Morgan. So. That's just going to be a match to keep an eye out in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, right now I'm not quite sure, but I probably have Morgan either 4th or 5th at this point. So, I mean, I hope he does better, but I just don't see it right now based upon what we've seen so far. At heavyweight 285, Penn State's got 2 wrestlers there, Cam Wade and John Gingrich.
Yeah, Gingrich has had a pretty good season, too, quietly, because, obviously he's not getting the starts in the dual meets, but, he did well in the Nittany Lion Open. He's won a couple other tournaments. I believe the East Stroudsburg Open, if I'm not mistaken. So he's has gotten some experience under his belt, and, I expect him to pick up a couple wins at the Scuffle this weekend. But Cameron Wade is the one you're going to want to keep an eye out for. He's going to be the point scorer for Penn State. What he's going to have to do is he's going to have to get past Clayton Jack from Oregon State. I think they would meet in the semis if that's the case, and then he'd have Tony Nelson in the finals if he makes it to the finals. And Tony beat Cameron earlier in the season at the Minnesota dual meet. And if they do meet in the finals, if Nelson and Cameron do meet in the finals. finals. It might be a pretty interesting match given the team race because, Minnesota I have picked as the favorite to win this tournament. But if Cameron and Nelson meet in the finals, that could be coming down to some crucial team points that could, possibly decide this entire tournament. So that's one to keep an eye out for. That might be a little added pressure for Cameron to actually make it to the finals and get another shot at Tony Nelson.
Well, two of the last three tournaments, it's actually come down to Cam, because last year, remember, in the finals, he had to actually get the bonus points on Ben Applin from Michigan in order for Penn State to secure a tie, which he did. And then same thing happened at the Big Ten Championships when he was in one of the consolation matches. He needed a bonus over Applin again and got it. That secured the win for Penn State. So I really, honestly, could see the same thing happening because even though Clayton Jack, who's had a pretty good year this year, he did well at the Cliff Keen, he won that. But last year, Wade, hammered him in the semis, I think, about 10-2 or something. So I don't think if Wade makes the semis, I don't think Jack's going to present a problem for him. So I do see this ending up being a Tony Nelson, Cam Wade final, which very well could have the team title race, on the line right there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch, and as you're saying, that Cameron's no stranger to a situation like this, and I think he's almost at the point in his career where he welcomes something of this type of magnitude, where it comes down to, especially with the final match. I mean, in the past it's been consolation matches, so if it comes down to a, final match where, if he gets the points that Penn State's going to win, that's going to add some little extra motivation to Cameron to really, go out there and get the revenge on Nelson after losing that match earlier in the year. But from watching that match back when Minnesota came into State College, I don't see how Cameron is going to beat Nelson. Nelson really kind of took it to Cameron. I don't want to say, looking to be, I almost want to say he had some better endurance than Cameron during that first match. But, that's still early. Maybe Cameron's kind of improved from there, but built up the endurance level, and maybe he's going to, prove some people wrong this weekend.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have to agree. Based upon what we've seen so far, you got to give the edge to Nelson, though. Who knows, Cam may surprise us there. I mean, if you look at the team race, both Penn State, Minnesota, and Cornell all have 3 number 1 seeds. Penn State has all seeds at all 10 weights. Minnesota 9, Cornell 7. The only other seed number 1 seed goes to Oregon State, and they have 6 seeds out of there. So it definitely looks like it's going to come down to Penn State, Minnesota, and I'm sure if we get a chance to listen to Jeff Byers this week, we're going to hear about all the head-to-head Gopher Nittany Lion competition, and it's going to be real exciting to hear and listen and follow all of those matches.
Yeah, it'll be a good indicator of how the postseason is going to kind of play out. And if you remember last year, Penn State kind of entered this tournament with a bunch of youngsters who really haven't been battle-tested yet, and they leave this tournament as co-champions with Cornell and, legitimate national championship contenders. And they went on to prove by the end of the season, obviously, that, this tournament was no fluke. They win this tournament, they won the national tournament. So I think the same thing's going to kind of hold true this year with, as you mentioned, Cornell and Minnesota and Penn State, 3 of the top 5 teams in the country, and then you have other teams like Missouri and Virginia Tech and Virginia and Oregon State and teams like that. There's a total of the top 8 of the top 25 teams in the country are all going to be at this tournament. So it's going to be a good indicator of where everyone sits, going into the postseason, and then with still 3 months between the postseason and now, it'll also give people room to work and let them know what they need to work on, what they need to improve on, and where they sit with the rest of their weight class. So it'll be a good indicator for not only Penn State but every team that's involved.
Yeah, and it looks like there's going to be about I think 22 teams there, so it's going to be a good challenge for these guys to get their lungs going. 2 days of full wrestling, starting on early in the morning, going all day, and hopefully this will give us a good, litmus test to see where the team is at the end of the week and where they're going to go going into the second half of the season.
Yeah, it should be a good one.
All right, Tim, any other notes or comments?
I don't think so. I think that's about it for on the wrestling front. We'll see how this tournament goes out. I'm sure it'll give us plenty to talk about in the upcoming weeks. So we'll be back.
All right, and one last thing here now. We actually heard Tom Bradley come out yesterday and say that the school is not looking to get a football coach until after the bowl game. So is there anything been going around the blue and white illustrated circles about who's going to be getting interviewed, what kind of leading candidates there are?
It's pretty quiet as you can bet. Not necessarily quiet on the message boards. I think there's a new coach popping up every hour and a half of this guy's the next coach of Penn State, this guy's not. But as from what we're hearing, from our different sources and everything, we're not hearing anyone to really bet the house on at this point. It's staying really under wraps, and the information that you do hear, you kind of have to filter it out to really determine if it's legitimate or not at this point. So at this point, we're not expecting an announcement any before January 3rd or 4th, and there's a possibility it could be delayed even longer than that, depending if their guy's still coaching or not. So it's an interesting time here for the Penn State football program. Everyone's on their toes, and everyone kind of wants their own input, but I think it's at the point now where it's just kind of a wait and see game. And I think the guy who's going to be coming here, is going to be someone who hasn't really been brought up in the circle, over and over and over again. So I think it's just going to be a surprise when it all happens, and we'll find out soon enough. Okay.
All right, Tim, are you going to go down to Tennessee, or are you going to stay up in Pennsylvania and follow along?
Yeah, I'll be up here in PA, follow along. We have some, the guys are down in Dallas for the bowl game, so I got some stuff getting sent back up here and have to do some work with that. But I'll be following along. I believe Flow Wrestling is going to have some coverage of the Southern Scuffle along with some of the other major tournaments that are happening around the country in the high school wrestling world. So, I'll be busy with those guys and, follow along on Twitter. So we'll be updated.
All right, Tim. Good talking to you. Have a good New Year's, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Kurt. Thanks a lot. Have a good New Year.
You too.